Okay, we'll start with this, recapping Tia May Ayton's explosive pro debut. Upon hearing Eddie Hearn talk about this fighter, I was afraid that he was overselling her, creating an air of expectation that would set the bar far too high for what is an 18-year-old fighter making her pro debut. But upon seeing her pro debut against veteran fighter Sarah Orgazi, I have to say that Eddie Hearn was not exaggerating. Eddie wasn't lying. She is every bit as powerful, every bit as explosive, as fan-friendly as Eddie made her out to be. Now, in a fighter's pro debut, you're not getting top-tier, top-shelf opponents for that fighter. Of course not. They're fighting fighters they are expected to beat in fights, they are expected to win. But it's how they win you have to pay attention to. Whether it's their physical attributes or their fundamentals, the X's and O's. And both jump out at you when it comes to Tia Ayton. She knows how to set up that backhand, knows how to land it. And man alive, when it lands, I mean, every single time she landed the backhand on Sarah, she knocked her off her pivot, knocked her off balance. That's power. In terms of raw materials, Tia May Ayton's got them. I've seen quite a few blue-chip prospects, male and female, make their pro debuts, and I've seldom ever been blown away. This is one of the few instances where that's happened. I was surprised that Sarah made it out of the first round. If she did, it's because Tia May Ayton wasn't even in a hurry to stop her. She was just letting the punches flow. Not chasing the knockout, but just letting it happen. And that speaks to Tia's poise, Tia's prior experience to debuting in boxing, that she's a veteran of 300 fights spread across 3 different disciplines. I believe it's kickboxing, amateur boxing, and judo. This contest took place in a super bantamweight division scheduled for 6 but ended in 3. And I think that we can expect to see Tia get back out there 2 to 3 more times before this calendar year is out. Because it was a super bantamweight contest, it is possible that she could stay there, campaign there, but it's just as likely that she drops down to 118. A lot of fighters do that. They debut at one weight, and after a few fights, they drop down to another. She could campaign at 118. We'll see. At 118, you have Shernika Johnson and Sharita Metcalf as the 2 reigning champions at that weight, set to square off against each other for undisputed, while Dina Thorsland is out on maternity leave, still in possession of the Ring Magazine title. Upstairs, at 122, you have Mayeli Flores holding the WBA, Yemi Mercado holding the WBC, and Ellie Scottney holding the 2 other Alphabet titles with the Ring Magazine title alongside them. Now, I do not expect that Tia May Ayton is on a collision course with any of these champions, because by the time that she's ready to fight for a title, the belts may have changed hands and many of these fighters may have moved on from these divisions. But that's the landscape right now between 118 and 122. Tia Ayton is only 18 years old, so she's not pressed for time to where she needs to hurry up and start fighting in eliminators to fight for a title. She's got the luxury of time that some other fighters don't have, so she can take her time. And what she needs now, more than anything, is experience, is rounds in the bank. The power is there, and the power is real. For a perspective,
Sarah Orgazi had never been knocked out before.
It was the very first time that's happened, and Tia made it look very easy. So now what she needs to work on is refining the delivery system for that power. She was able to regularly land with the jab and the straight.
The most common combination in boxing.
Coming into the pro game, she already has a reputation for being a puncher. So when you're a puncher, you want to learn to disguise your punches.
How do you do that?
With the jab and how you use your jab. That's what sets up everything else. You can shoot it like a piston
or paw with it, probe with it.
Use it as a decoy to distract your opponent or flick it to blind your opponent. Get them worrying about that jab so they don't see the backhand coming.
And other punches.
Punch selection, punch variety matters as well. You don't want to just keep throwing the same combination over and over to where your opponent will expect it and they'll know when and where to counter. You got to switch it up.
Tia's got the raw ingredients. Now she has to put them together.
It's the subtleties, it's the little things that she needs to work on, as it is the little things that could take her all the way. She's got devastating power, but power alone sometimes is not enough. You got to dress it up.
Explosive pro debut. As stated, Eddie wasn't lying. He was not exaggerating when he talked about this girl. Amazing.
Sucking all the way down to, 47, I feel like it's just, kind of like a lot. And even with the nutritionist, like we got blood work and stuff done and things like that, just to see, like what I'm missing and what I need. And it basically was telling me, like, I'm underperforming. Like, I'm really, like, at probably 30-40%, fighting these fights. And that's a consideration.
I don't think for a second Jaron Ennis was lying about what he said. I've long maintained that as a welterweight, given his size and the amount of time he's already spent there, he's on borrowed time, and in all likelihood, he won't achieve that goal of becoming the next welterweight undisputed champion.
Nope.
Not just because of his weight, but because of the politics of boxing. I feel like becoming an undisputed champion at a given weight used to boil down to ability, whereas these days, it's more about availability. What fighters are even going to make themselves available to you to achieve that goal? And I was never convinced that he would be able to get Mario Barrios in the ring. Or Brian Norman, whose star is now rising. That's why I emphasized that they should have had that fight when they could have had it. They should have had that fight when it was there, because very soon it won't be. Some are citing the timing of Boots' move to 154 as less than opportune because Brian Norman's highlight reel knockout of Jin Suzuki, it's getting attention.
His star is rising.
People are getting excited, but I've long maintained that Boots wasn't going to be there very long. So we can file that under missed opportunities for Brian Norman, because I do not expect a high abundance of offers to come in.
For a fight with him?
I've already been through an itemized list of names who I do not expect to face Brian Norman. I don't expect the winner of Pacquiao versus Barrios to face him, or Rolly Romero when he's elevated to full WBA champion. Teofimo?
Forget it.
Devin Haney?
Forget it.
Boots is moving up, and that was your meal ticket.
The best fight for Devin is Errol Spence at 150 catchweight pay-per-view should be called The Rebuild. I love it. I love it. I fucking love it. I love it. I mean, this is what I'm saying. When you a fan of your fighter, you're not afraid of fighters. You're not afraid of no fighters, bro. Devin beats the shit out of Earl.
Devin Haney is campaigning as a welterweight now, whereas Errol Spence Jr. has still not returned, has still not rebounded off his lopsided loss to Terrence Crawford approximately 2 years ago. It's a suggestion. Haney versus Spence.
Not the least bit realistic, though.
But that is what one caller suggested to Nestor Gibbs of The Boxing Voice. Nestor Gibbs, who recently sat down with both Bill Haney and Brian Norman Sr. And Brian Norman Sr. was gunning for a fight between Devin and Brian.
Forget about Devin and Spence.
Errol Spence Jr. may never box again, and that's reality. His fans try as they might to keep his name out there, to keep him in the mix.
Forget it.
Haney versus Spence is not a conversation. Now, Haney versus Norman, that might become one. Brian Norman Sr. suggested, ahead of the Jin Suzuki fight, that if they take care of business with Jin, can they fight Devin afterwards? And now I expect the Normans to put pressure on Devin.
Devin himself doesn't have a lot of options.
Ryan Garcia screwed the pooch, couldn't hold up his end of the bargain. Teofimo Lopez bulked. Rolly's not interested.
Brian is.
And what is the ever-changing topography of the welterweight landscape, a byproduct of Boots' ascent to the junior middleweight division.
So we ain't getting Boots Ennis versus Norman Jr.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Many would argue that today's junior middleweight division is deeper and more dangerous than today's welterweight division. You could have picked Boots to beat most everybody, if not everybody, at 147, whereas at 154, he will truly be tested.
54. So your promoter Eddie Hearn said that y'all reached out for a possible fight in August, and Virgil said that he wouldn't be available. I think he might be coming off of an injury or something like that. But is that a fight that can be made in the future?
Most definitely. That's the fight definitely can happen. You know, that's the fight everybody want to see. You know, I'm at 54 now, so it gotta happen. It gotta happen. That's the fight that everybody want to see. It gotta happen. That fight gonna make a lot of money. We're gonna sell out no matter where it's at. Everybody want to see it. So I definitely think that fight definitely gonna happen for sure.
Does people calling you a duck, people saying you ducked Virgil Ortiz, is that any extra motivation headed to that fight?
For sure. You know, it's definitely extra motivation. You know, I can't wait to shut y'all up, man. I can't wait to shut y'all up, man, for sure.
Just talked about Brian Norman's missed opportunity with Boots. Let's talk about Boots' missed opportunity with Virgil Ortiz. It's not a given that that fight happens now that Boots is campaigning at 154 due to the rift between Oscar De La Hoya and Turki El Sheikh that we talked about in a previous video.
What Turki said at the kickoff press conference for Canelo versus Crawford. Before, it was Turki that was going to finance that. Now,
the main thing here is that Oscar seems to be gradually moving away from Turki El Sheikh and everything that he's trying to do, that now I would sooner expect Virgil to box on one of Jake Paul's cards than box on one of Turki's cards.
He's given Jake access to Floyd Schofield, access to Zurdo Ramirez. He may soon give him access to Virgil Ortiz to box on one of his shows before he grants access to Turki.
Turki, who just accused Oscar of wasting his time.
Quit with the grab assin'. We know that Virgil will not be Boots' next fight in the junior middleweight division. We know that Bakram Murtazaliev won't be his next fight either. Bakram is said to be boxing Josh Kelly in his next fight, so it ain't gonna be Virgil. It's not gonna be Bakram. Who else is out there that makes sense for Jaron Ennis? And I'd like to see Jaron Ennis fight a hard-nosed guy, a hard-nosed, experienced junior middleweight in either a Brian Mendoza or a Jesus Ramos. Stylistically, those are both fights that favor Jaron Ennis, based on styles, though based on size, there are still questions that need answers. Boots is one of these fighters that has largely benefited from having a size advantage over most other fighters at his given weight. He was always a very big welterweight, but at junior middle, well, you're not as big. Yeah, Brian Mendoza is a tough bastard. Sergey Bohachuk and Tim Kazoo had to beat the crap out of this guy to win a decision, but neither one was able to get him out of there. I'd like to see Boots versus Mendoza or Boots versus Ramos. Yeah, Jesus Ramos lost a controversial decision to Erickson Lubin, but he has since got himself back in the winner's bracket. He is experienced at this weight, and he is a physical fighter, like Roman Villa was a physical fighter, a Montestanionis was a physical fighter, just bigger than those fighters were. I think this would be a good acid test for Jaron Ennis at 154, since neither Virgil or Bakram are available.
Brian Mendoza and Jesus Ramos are not terribly busy right now, and they're not terribly expensive either, to where these fights should be difficult to make. Now, granted that if you made those fights, there probably wouldn't be a belt on the line,
but he's got to get his feet wet.
These are the kind of guys he has to be able to beat in order to become a two-weight world champion. There's not much hope of that happening if you can't get past either a Brian Mendoza or a Jesus Ramos. So I would like to see those fights.
Finally, the continued fallout of Jaime Munguia's positive test. His opponent, Bruno Surace, said it's painful for those who fight cleanly.
Surace was generally silent on the subject until it became clear that Munguia is clearly at fault.
his B sample was opened and it yielded the same results as the A sample. To that, Bruno stated, "I feel the need to speak up about recent revelations regarding Jaime Munguia's doping," Surace said in a public statement made through his verified social media accounts. First of all, I want to remind you that Jaime Munguia is a boxer I've long admired. He's a champion, a warrior, someone who made a mark on our sport. When I gave him this rematch after my win in Tijuana, it wasn't a simple choice, it was a walk of truth. I didn't want people to say I was lucky, that it was an accident. I wanted to prove once and for all that I earned my place with my fists, my heart, and my work. During the whole preparation, I've put my life on the side with my team, worked like never before. We locked in this mission with total determination every day, every session, every pain had meaning, showing up 100% against one of the biggest names in boxing. Munguia will now have to appear before the British Boxing Board of Control, the presiding commission over the May 4th event. So yeah, the outcome is annulled today, noted Surace, though basing the comment on confirmation of Munguia's drug test. And even if the truth always comes out, that's not the outcome I came here for. That's not why I sacrificed everything. I can't rejoice in this situation because there's nothing to celebrate in it. It is sad for our sport. It is unfair to those who train with integrity, and it's painful for those who fight cleanly, honestly. Boxing is a tough sport. It asks for everything and sometimes gives little, but that's why we love it too. How I feel today is a great disappointment, but also an even stronger desire to keep fighting for myself, for my team, for everyone who believes in fair boxing. We are now waiting for a sanction on the level of my disappointment to be passed by the competent authorities, and I stand ready more than ever for what is next. I suppose that Bruno's unbeaten record is about to be restored. The loss to Jaime Munguia will be annulled.
That's how these things usually go. The length of Jaime's ban is subject to speculation.
What's not is Bruno's disappointment that a fighter that he long admired turned out to be a dirty cheat. That's how it looks outwardly, short of the lofty explanations usually associated with these cases. Nobody really believes them. Jaime had every reason to cheat going into that rematch.
He got knocked out by a guy that doesn't even normally knock people out.
So he needed some assurances that he could do in the second fight what he did not do to Bruno in the first. That's the way it looks. But the gravity of the situation is not exclusive to just these two fighters. And I've maintained for some time now that after a certain level, I think everybody's doping. I think all the top-level boxers are doping. The men, the women, but not the guys like Bruno.
Which begs the question, what percentage of boxers are doping and what percentage aren't? Because I don't think Bruno is.
Just as well, what percentage of a fighter's abilities can you attribute to doping? Is the fighter only a good fighter because he's doping?
If you give Bruno the same secret sauce that they were giving Jaime, does he all of a sudden become an elite level boxer? It's a question, not a statement.
But there is precedent to ask it. What percentage of a fighter's abilities can you attribute to synthetic drugs?
Since so many of them are clearly taking them.
It's something to think on the heels of the latest doping case to rock the boxing world.